What if the answers you've been searching for in leadership, performance, or business success were already inside you? What if the real challenge wasn't finding the right answer, but learning how to listen differently? Welcome to Industry Ignited, the show where we spotlight bold leaders, reshaping how we think, lead, and grow. I'm your host, Dr. Leeanne Aguilar. And today's conversation is one that every leader, entrepreneur, and executive needs to hear. My guest is Gabrielle Baumeyer, CEO and founder of Baumeyer Coaching, an ICF certified executive coach, leadership development expert, and keynote speaker with more than 25 years of experience guiding individuals and teams towards measurable, lasting transformation. Gabrielle, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Leanne.
Now, you've worn many hats. I know this. I've known you for a long time. You've been a trainer, consultant, business owner, and now executive coach. What led you to realize that coaching was the common thread through all of it?
That's a great question. In the past few years, I've reflected back on how my whole professional career has been about working with people to increase their effectiveness. Being efficient, you could say, is a little bit of a hobby for me. I really love it. And so I've always been on the side of others, supporting them, lifting them up. And looking back on my career, it's as if I just did it in different ways and through different mediums. So I've always wanted them walking away bigger after spending time with me. And sometimes in my professional career, I was called a consultant, sometimes a trainer and an executive coach. So the mediums might have changed, but the intention was always the same.
Right. Yeah. So basically, even before you called yourself a coach, you were doing it along the way. What were the early signs that your approach to training and leadership was something deeper?
Early on, looking back in my software training career when I was in my 20s, I kept consistently getting feedback that how I worked was different. And I wasn't quite sure what people meant until I saw other trainers leading the same type of content that I was. And this is the one thing that I was doing differently is I was asking the students questions, like a lot. I would
Yeah.
ask questions to test the learning. And so very early on, I learned to do that, to have it be more of an inquiry. My teaching was more of an inquiry than a here's what you need to do. And of course, that was included.
Yeah. And that is interesting because they say teachers are always learning and often learning more than the students do. And I think that's probably part of it because the teachers are asking the questions and then they're getting that reflection back from the student, which, facilitates a deeper level of learning. I think that when you create that kind of engagement where you're asking questions and you're getting the students to, or in this case, your coachees to think about things at a deeper level, then they start asking the questions too, which, and I've even heard, like one of my guests recently was telling me about problem solving that they ask why like 5 times. Like you keep asking why and then why again and why, you just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And that just really helps people discover, the answers that they have already inside of themselves, I think.
Yes.
Now, as you mentioned, coaching often starts with that curiosity. What questions changed the trajectory of your own career?
I would say it's a couple of things. When I was in college, asked myself a lot, what is I don't think I said it this way, but it was to the tune of what's my purpose? What am I here for? And I didn't really engage with anyone on that. That was just kind of my internal question to myself. And then at some point when I started my career, and if you remember back to the first time you have your first job and it's like, is this really what it's all about?
Yeah.
It's 40 hours a week of this or more. And then at that point, again, in my 20s, I started to ask, what do I want my career to serve? Because I am spending a lot of time in my job and working with these people, and it's in service of what? And so I went on a real quest for having my career and my professional endeavors be about serving something. And you could say the two questions were related, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you never really answer them, but those were a couple that stood out for me when you asked the question.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think That's a question. I mean, that level of exploration or understanding like what your purpose is. I mean, oftentimes doesn't come until later in a career. But I love that you started asking that question, you know, quickly. That you identified that as a question to ask
Well,
early on.
Well, I'll tell you a little something else about that is you might recall that I recently was a co-author of a book, Six Figure Chicks, and we each wrote a chapter in the book about our professional endeavors and our successes. And I reflected back on, kind of what do I want to say and what do I want to share with people. This is my opportunity for spotlight. And at the age of 6, and I put this in the book, at the age of 6, I was already in that
Wow.
inquiry mode. Yes, it's wildly young because I hadn't really been in touch with it at that
Yeah.
level until I started writing. And yes, at a very early age, it was why am I here and
Wow.
why do I get the education and those kids don't, and how come I get to live in a nice house and those kids don't. I
Yeah.
was just a very pensive kid and asked a lot of questions and still do. So it's probably
Yeah.
an
No,
accident
that
that I'm in this profession.
so you were wise beyond your years. Yeah, you just had
Probably.
that level of reflection and
Yes.
that's yeah, that's awesome. Now you talk about authenticity and vulnerability as core leadership tools. When did you personally experience the power of showing up that way?
Oh, I have to say that was early in the years of starting my company. So this is back in, gosh, like 2010, 2011. I had an unfortunate incident with a colleague, and I was at that moment convinced that I needed to close the company and go back to corporate America because I already made the jump, and it was it was scary. It was scary because I'd put so much into it. And so I talked with a coach and I got very, very real with him. And what I said to him was, I am not cut out for this. I'm
Mm,
just not. If this is what it looks like to run your business and you kind of have to be a little cutthroat and watch your back, then this is just not for me. And he just listened. And I was able to speak really in an unfiltered way. And I was scared to say it, but I did anyway. And he
yeah.
was quiet enough and he was thoughtful enough to let me just talk. And I eventually heard the absurdity of that statement and I just kept going. And it
Wow.
wasn't like, I think it was like 90 seconds in.
Yeah.
He was so quiet that I go, "Oh, wait a second. No, I'm not going anywhere. No,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen." So it was a real pivotal moment for me. And I remember it as if it were yesterday.
Right. So that aha moment, I mean, you were able to talk yourself into that aha moment where you realized that,
Yes.
the absurdity, I guess, like you said, of your own thought process at that time. You're ready to throw in the towel, walk
Right.
away, give up, go back, and just because you hit basically a roadblock. But that was, yeah, super enlightening. And I bet, I mean, now in the position you're in, now you're helping facilitate those aha moments for others. Yeah.
Yes, and I can
Yeah.
relate when they hit the roadblock. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, I hear you.
Yeah,
Keep
I hear
talking.
you. And
Keep
it's
talking.
keep talking, right? And
Mhm.
that's so interesting. Many leaders confuse coaching with consulting, mentoring, or training. Can you draw the distinction between those approaches and why true coaching feels so different?
I can because I've played all of those roles. I've worn all of those hats. So with training, to put it simply, you're teaching someone exactly how to do ABC. This is how you do it. These are these steps to follow. Uh, and with consulting, you're a subject matter expert on X and you're sharing your knowledge about X or ABC. And sometimes you're even doing the work for the person or with the team alongside them.
Mm-hmm.
So you are a subject matter expert in medical devices. And so you are giving your knowledge about that. And sometimes you get down into the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty of that particular subject. That's a consultant.
Yeah.
And then a mentor is more of a guide. So it's someone who's been in the exact shoes or close to the exact shoes of that person. And the mentor is guiding him or her on a pretty close basis to eliminate any missteps. It's, look, I've done this before, and this is what happened when I did it. And hey, why don't you try this method, or why don't you tweak it this way? And as a mentor, you're really side by side with the person, so they can learn from your mistakes, you could say.
Yeah. Okay. So,
And and then with a coach, much to what we've just referenced, a coach listens. The coach listens, asks questions, and encourages new thinking. So, a coach is going to allow the client to discover for him or herself that most often that person does know what to do, just like I did in the example that I just gave.
right.
So, they just have something in the way. The person just has a barrier. And sometimes we'll call it a limiting perception, limiting belief, that once that person sees that, once it's acknowledged, there's an opportunity for it to no longer stand in the way.
Yeah.
So, as a coach, you allow the person to see something that they wouldn't have seen on their own absent the conversation. And that can only happen in dialogue.
Right.
It can only happen with someone getting you, someone listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you can see that, call it again the limiting belief or limiting perception, then you have a choice to take actions that you couldn't necessarily access before you saw that.
Yeah. So, right. So coaching, it's really about unlocking potential. I'm hearing rather than
Yes.
instructing, you're mirroring back, you're being that listening. So a person just really feels heard, understood, like you get them.
Yes.
And yeah, and that somehow unlocks the insight that they have already inside of them.
Yes, because if you think about it, we go through a pretty fast-paced life where we're just inundated with information. We're having to generate it ourselves. And when a client of mine sits with me for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, for an hour, sometimes that's one of the only times that they slow down
Mm,
and
right.
actually have the experience of being heard and have the experience of being listened to. And
Right.
we can all relate. We talking with the kids and husbands and wives and neighbors, and we're all just kind of waiting to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all hanging out with people who are waiting to talk. And when someone's coaching with a coach, with me in particular, I'll talk about me. I'm not waiting to talk. I'm there to listen. And then at some point I will talk, but I'm going to ask a question that's going to have you think just a little bit more and in a different way that you might not have been thinking before we started talking.
All right. So you're really helping your clients discover what's already inside of them by listening, by asking questions, by just helping them slow down, like you said,
Yes.
and really focus on what
Yes.
they're trying to accomplish and answer,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
for
a real gift
themselves.
for them to let themselves slow down enough to have that focus. And I don't take it lightly.
Yeah. Now, in your work, what's one breakthrough moment that still gives you chills? Like when you helped a client truly get it.
Oh gosh, this one will always come to mind. This was I was working with a gentleman who. So one of the tenets of my work, and I've said this before, and that is, if you say you're going to do something, do it, or go down fighting. Right? Like you really, if you want the company to grow to X, or if you want to make ABC happen in the company, you're saying like some big goals, and you want something to actually come to fruition. And
Right.
so the only way really to do that is to practice being someone who, when you say something, it'll happen. Now, if you don't make it happen, I got it. It's fine. And we'll look at it and you'll grow from that. Whether you do it or not, you'll grow from it. But the game is to build the muscle in being someone who does what you say you're going to do, because there's a lot of growth in that. And so
Yeah.
I had this one client who told me that he was going to call a gentleman, we'll call him Mike, and he was going to invite Mike to be the CFO of his company. And I said, okay, great. When are you going to call Mike? And we were talking on Tuesday, and he says, I'll call Mike on Thursday. And well, Tuesday comes 7 days later, and he didn't call Mike. And I go, okay, well, here's what the deal is. You want to actually call him, and it's okay that you didn't. And if you're not going to do what you say you're going to do because you want this company to really provide something for you and your family, but if you're not going to do the things that you say you're going to do on a weekly basis, this is not going to work out,
Right.
because this is going to be, it's going to waste your time and money. And you didn't hire me to let you not take actions where there are actions to take. He said, okay, fine, got it. That was about, I don't know, 3-minute conversation. And so then I said, well, when are you going to call Mike? He says, I'll call him on Friday. And so he calls him on Friday, and the next Tuesday we talk. And I said, well, what happened? He says, I had the best conversation with Mike. I said, well, what did you learn from that conversation? He said, I learned the reason I didn't call him is because I'm intimidated to call people who are smarter than me.
Oh, interesting.
I'm intimidated. I don't want to call people who and engage with people that I think I'm not like kind of up to par with them. I said, isn't
Right.
that interesting? What did you learn from that? And he goes, well, I realized that, yeah, he is a really smart guy and so am I. And really
Hmm.
smart people want to participate in my company with me. And I said, look at that. And so from
Wow.
that point on, he had a real, I'll call it a breakthrough
Yeah.
in inviting people to participate in what he was building
Yeah. Right.
because he was stopped in inviting people in. Now, you know as well as I do, Leanne, and as well as your listeners do, if you're going to build something of significance, you're not going to build it alone. It's
Right.
kind of, that's not going to happen. But he was not at a point where he could see past that. And so when he didn't do the initial call, I didn't ask why. We didn't go into it. It was 3 minutes long. And I just said, how about you just do it? And he said, yeah, I will. And then the learning happened afterwards.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, one thing that happens in my work with people is they are very, very surprised at how quickly the results happen in our
Hmm.
conversations. Because while we will go sometimes deep into a topic, we're only going to go deep when that person's ready to go deep. And so we could have analyzed why he didn't make the phone call and talked for 20 minutes about why, but it didn't matter. He just
Doesn't
didn't,
matter.
oh, right.
Right.
He didn't make a phone call. Okay. But then
It's the
after,
action. Yeah. It's the
right.
outcome that you're looking for.
And then
Exactly.
after he got across the bridge, he could reflect back and say, oh, that's what the barrier
Yeah.
was. See, now
Right.
if I tried to tell him that, it wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah. He wouldn't have heard you.
Wouldn't have heard me.
Exactly. He had to figure it out for himself.
And there's a lot of power in taking
Yeah.
action.
That's right.
And you're going to learn whether you take the action or not. There's going to be growth in either opportunity. And when you take
Okay.
action,
Yeah.
right.
So you really served as the person who was holding him accountable. So as the coach, you're providing that accountability and challenging them to take action.
Yes. And we had set that up, Leanne. I don't want that to fall to the wayside. When we have our original, call it a chemistry call, sometimes what coaches call them, our initial, orientation, we
Yeah.
set up how our relationship is going to go. And so we had the agreement that I could talk that way and we could get into that kind of
Right.
mode.
Right.
So I don't want your listeners to be like, oh my goodness, she just goes straight into it and there's just no way around it. No, we actually set that up from the beginning
Yeah.
because this is a trusting relationship. It's very personal and we're going to have it work for the client, whatever that might look like. And if there's ever a time that we need to adjust, we will. But
Yeah.
then that takes courage too, is to bring it up on either side. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
this is not working. And then we get over that bridge. And there's
Right.
growth there as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, but I think that people who are, up to something in the world, up to a lot, like high achievers, people who
Yes.
want to make a difference, want that accountability to some level. And I think we, struggle sometimes. I mean, speaking for myself, even, just sometimes I need somebody to remind me, hey,
Yes.
remember, you're up to this. Don't
Yes.
let it slip by you, and just because that accountability pushes you and it makes you more motivated to take the action because somebody else is looking at you and saying, hey,
Yes.
did you do what you were committed to? So,
And I love you
right.
anyway. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like there's nothing wrong. It's not, you're not bad or wrong. It's not that. It's just this is what you're committed to and this is going to help you move forward. I'm here to help you, move forward because this is supporting your objectives, what you're up to, right? You often say hindsight is 2020. How do you help clients access that same clarity in the moment instead of years later?
Gosh, access that in the moment instead of years later. We start to practice this seemingly simple yet powerful thing called being present. I've learned that that's a real, let's call it a game changer. So again, we're in a rat race. We're going 100 miles an hour, and we don't have a lot of time where we just stop and reflect and give ourselves a chance to have clarity. Okay. And so when I'm in a coaching session with someone, it's quiet, it's still, there are no distractions, And there's a lot of just being present. I had this one client said, I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks and this thing happened. And I just stopped and I asked myself, okay, what is it that needs to be done? And he just asked himself that reflective, like, what can I do here? But he said, the way he said it was, I just stopped and I listened and I asked myself, what's going to make the difference here? And he said it was as if we were in a coaching session, but I wasn't there. He just
Yeah.
did this on his own.
Right.
And so the encouragement and the practice to slow down and just be in the moment, to listen to your own internal thoughts and listen to your intuition, that gut thing is quite important. It makes a big difference when you listen to it. That would be a way that I encourage clients to just start producing results now with a new practice called being present.
Right. Yeah. And especially these days, there's so much noise in our
Mhm.
space with, handheld devices, our phones, our laptops, our tablets,
Yeah.
everywhere you look, there's just, noise, 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 and this distraction, that distraction, this social media and emails galore. So it is harder than ever, I think, to just
Yes.
be present because there's so many distractions. And I was listening to a comedian, I think on one of these social media devices, probably, or on a device on social media. But he was saying that mindfulness, that was never a word like when we were growing up because
Right.
we had silence. Mindfulness was just a natural practice. You went outside and took a walk, and there wasn't a phone in your hand. You could watch the sunset, and you weren't being distracted by pings and notifications and all that, and it was a funny thing, it's like mindfulness, that wasn't a term. But now we actually, have to be super
Deliberate.
intentional
Yes.
about, getting that quiet time, that space without the distractions, ironically.
Yes.
hmm Now, you've built a reputation for helping high achievers slow down enough to see themselves. Why do you think so many leaders struggle with self-awareness?
It takes courage to look at yourself in the mirror. It really does. Again, we keep talking about this society we're in now. It's just all so fast paced. And when we move at such a fast pace, we might make some mistakes. We might have some stumbling along the way. And when a leader says, okay, now I'm going to stop and I'm going to reflect and I'm going to increase my level of self-awareness, they might have to face some things that they are not very excited that they did in the past. Maybe a mistake here or there, or some decision that might have had some big consequences. And when you're on a journey to be self-aware, there's a level at which you're going to look at yourself and what you did back then a few years ago at that or that other company where you worked. And that takes courage because there
Yeah.
might be something to address and resolve that you kind of weren't that wasn't in the game plan, right? It's like, wait, I just want to get a coach and say I'm more self-aware. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes being self-aware means being aware of what you yourself did. And that is not for it's something, like I said, I take it very seriously. I honor it, I cherish that. And anyone who does take on that journey, I just really commend them because they are, like you referenced earlier, they're committed to something.
hmm
They're committed to their own development. They're committed to the development of their team. They're committed to their community, growing a business that's going to create jobs for the city, whatever it is. And that is not something that I take lightly.
So, like you said, I mean, looking at yourself, that does take courage. It takes vulnerability. It's not an easy thing to do, but there's no shame in it. And I love that in coaching, there is no judgment at all. It's not even about digging into the past. It's about moving forward. And
Right.
so, is the quicker you can identify habits like patterns, things that, I mean, you know, you helped me through a coaching session the
Right.
other day where I noticed, it was like,
Right.
realize one of my patterns. It's like, yep, I do that.
It,
Wow.
look at that. You're human.
I'm
Wow. Look at
human.
that. There's
I'm human. I have a pattern. Yep, you're right. I did it again. It's like totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just have
right.
to acknowledge it in order to change it. Because if you don't
Yes.
acknowledge, if you're not aware, then you're going to fall into the same
Right.
patterns over and
Right.
over again.
Yeah. Well
So
said.
the power I think is in that self-awareness.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've shared, Gabrielle, that picking up the phone, literally making human contact, is one of your greatest coaching lessons. Why do you think people resist connection in such a connected world?
Yes, we're definitely in a connected world digitally, which is not the same as being connected. I
Yeah.
see those as two different things. And so I think that we resist for the fear of not knowing how to address the unknown that's on the other side of that connecting. So if I'm going to reach out to someone and I haven't talked to them in a while, or they're a potential client, or there's someone with whom I'm going to do a community project, or what it might be, there's always a hesitancy on my part. Okay, so I'm like looking under the cover here. I rarely really want to pick up the phone.
It's
Yes,
not,
I
yeah.
want to be connected to people, but it happens to me too. That goes on in my head. It's like, oh my gosh, am I going to catch them when they're busy? And all those things. So when we are about to go into a conversation with someone, there is a level of unknown that we're about to approach.
Hmm.
And that can make us a little uneasy. It does for me, for sure. And so what would we rather do? Well, let me send an email instead, or
Right.
text that person instead. And 9 times out of 10, and you've probably experienced it, when you just pick up the phone and have the conversation, it, whatever the thing is, it disappears. It's like, oh, I was concerned I was catching them when they were busy. Okay, no, they're okay. Or wow, I was concerned that the person was really gonna not want to do this project with me. No, I found out that wasn't true. It's just, I think it's just always that way, quite frankly.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
we just get better at picking up the phone anyway.
Just have
And
to get back into the habit of it, right? It just, I've gotten so used to
mhm,
avoiding the phone, just sending
yes,
a text, sending an email, messaging somebody.
and claim
But
we're connected.
yeah, right, right. That is funny. That is ironic that it's like we're so connected, but it's,
Yes.
but relationships suffer, I think, that way, because you can get so much more out of an actual conversation with somebody or
Yeah.
out of a face-to-face meeting. I mean,
Yes.
there's other, you know, dimensions of experience that
Yes.
you have. You just get to know somebody and, on a deeper level by being in person or on the phone. Hmm.
And I will say this as well, Leanne, to go on the shoulders of that is, at some point I realized that while I've been doing some form of coaching, some form or fashion of it for, gosh, 28, 30 years or so, I still have a hesitancy in talking with people. It's like the funniest thing to admit. Okay, it sounds so strange, but I really want for people to experience being heard, like to really experience being heard. And that can't happen absent a conversation. It just, that those two kind of don't fit in the same world. And so each time I pick up the phone, it's because I'm committed to something being available for that person, because I'm pretty sure that when that person talks to me, they haven't talked to someone like me before, who's going to listen a particular way and be curious a particular way. And that's a skill and that's a practice. It really, really is. And so when I get the chance to make the phone call, while I first might say, oh no, I'm busy, I need to go do the dishes or whatever, the thing might be, ultimately when I dial the phone, it's going to be a conversation that makes a difference for the two of us. Because one of the greatest things about being a coach is that person's a mirror for you too.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
so,
you
it's
do.
it's so miraculous.
Right, right. You walk away being inspired as well and
Right.
feeling uplifted, and it, yeah, makes an impact for sure. Seems simple enough, like, oh, I just listen. Oh, and I ask questions. I'm curious, but it is a skill that you develop. It is something that over time, over years, that you learn to understand what questions to ask, that you learn how to read somebody to see what's maybe limiting them, one of those limiting
Yes.
beliefs, like you mentioned,
Yes.
and how to guide that conversation. So not as easy as it seems.
Yeah. Well, and you're reminding me of another story here, if I could. I recently did I spoke. I was at a conference and I spoke, and one of the things I do is I will have people watch me in a coaching conversation. It's not very, common that people see that at a conference, but that's what I do, because there's a lot of power in that, and having somebody see something that they haven't seen before in a 15-minute coaching conversation in front of other people.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Good idea. Yeah.
it's great. It's so wonderful for all of us. And one of the gentlemen afterwards, he says, I was writing down all your questions because you were asking really, really good questions. And he says, how did you know what questions to ask? Do you have like this list someplace in a notebook? And I said, well, I'm gonna answer that question, and it might sound a little not like what you would expect. And he goes, okay, have at it, go for it. And I said, I know what to ask, or I ask what I ask because I'm present and I'm listening. And when you're present enough and listening to what the other person is not only saying, but what the other person is not even saying, then that person is telling you what to ask next.
Yeah.
And then I asked him a question, and I said, what do you get out of what I just said? And he goes, I really need to listen more.
Ah,
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah. Very
right.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't pass up on opportunities to be that way with people.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
they're inviting me to come to a conference, I'm going to give them everything I have at every single moment. And they ask me a question, Leanne, and I'll answer in such a way that that person ends up bigger, having asked
Yes.
that question.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So every leader faces those limiting beliefs, like we were talking about, like they don't want to hear from me, I'll do it later, I'm not ready. How do you coach people through that inner dialogue?
We practice just letting it be. That's the simple, very conceptual answer, Leanne. When that person I'm coaching, so let's say I ask them a question, okay, well, why aren't you doing XYZ? Or why didn't you contact that person? And they say, that person just doesn't want to hear from me. I go, got it. Okay. And then I ask, is that true? And then we're just silent. And the person has a chance to think.
Right.
And then she or he will say, well, I actually don't know. Well, I don't know. I go, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we just let it be. I just let it sit. Let it sit. Because here's the thing, it's not going to go away. It hasn't gone away from me
Yeah.
in umpteenth years. I still say that to myself. I don't want to, I'm not ready. And my favorite is, I'll do it later. Like I still do all that too.
Right.
And if we don't resist it, if we don't try and get rid of it, because you never will, try getting rid of it. It's never going to go away. I mean, has it yet? No. When we don't resist it, if we don't try and make it go away, we don't belittle it, and we just let it be. And then maybe get curious of like, oh, wow, is that actually a true statement? Oh, no, and maybe it's not. And then all of a sudden picking up the phone or doing the thing they were stopped in doing seems attainable.
Right.
So it won't go away. Let it be. Be curious about it.
Yeah, and that's true. So why resist it? Because it will come up again, that inner critic, that the procrastinator, because, putting it off, because then we'd have to actually look at it. And that courage comes back into the picture. We actually have to do the thing,
Yes.
or imposter syndrome. Like I'm not good enough. I'm not qualified when
Yes.
they're, an expert in their field. I mean,
Right.
like you said, it's not going to go away. It happens to all of us. And so instead of resisting, it's looking at it, it's being with it, is asking, is it true? Is it, you know,
Write that one down.
yeah,
Whoever's listening, write that.
is it
Really? Is
really true?
that really the case? I don't know.
And so, and like you said, and just that courage and that really has an impact for both the client and the coach, and I like how you said, it's like you're looking for or helping people be bigger, step into their greatness and
Yes.
empowering. Yeah. So you said you named your company Baumeyer Coaching. It was an act of courage, a moment of finally being seen. What shifted for you after that decision?
Well, I do this thing where I kind of take these unofficial polls with people. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I was trying to kind of do my little analysis, kind of undercover and whatnot. And I started to ask people, I'm thinking of, naming my company. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what you do. Yep, that's the perfect name. And after about 5, 6 people, 10 people saying that to me, I go, oh, okay, maybe that actually is what there is for me. That's the name of my company. And so I just received a lot of validation, which I needed. I really needed that. My company before was not named after me. And so it was a little bit like I could hide behind the curtain. And this was wow, okay, I'm going to like kind of take the curtain away and I'm going to be me. And
Yeah.
when I did that, it was kind of like a mark in the sand. Like, okay, I'm going to let people know that I'm here. And if they know that I'm here, I also want them to know what I'm about.
Right.
And what I'm about is lifting people up and to empowering leaders to express their leadership in the world. I'm here to have people get they are already great and they just might have something in the way of expressing that.
Yeah.
And so when I put my name on my company, it was a little bit like, okay, there's no more hiding out.
Mm. Like owning it. Here I am. This
Yes.
is what I'm all about. And right.
And then people said, well, we've already always known that. Like, did you not know that? I go, no, I guess not. I guess I didn't.
Yeah. I can hear how passionate you are. I mean, I like see the passion in your voice, and I know um, that you are all about helping leaders express their authentic self.
Yes.
So, what's one practice that helps people reconnect with who they really are?
Well, I'll give you the practice that I have. And I've said it many times throughout this discussion, and that is slowing down. It's just slow down. Just take a walk, turn the devices off, find your time where slowing down and being quiet is the most effective for you. And mine is really early in the morning, like really early in the morning when everyone's asleep and it's dark outside and I can just be in my quiet thoughts and listen to myself. And that's what I recommend people do because in your quiet moments, you'll hear yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes you won't like what you hear. However, keep listening because once you get through the muddle, you'll get back in touch with who you really are and what you really want. And it gets clearer and clearer.
Yeah. And just ask, is it true? That muddle, during the muddle, is
Is
it
it?
really true? I like that. Uh, so, Gabrielle, looking ahead, what's your vision for the future of leadership and coaching, especially in industries like manufacturing, energy, and construction, where this kind of work is still emerging?
We have a lot of room to emerge there. I'm glad you asked this question because the, from where I sit, in all the years I've been working with people, the desire and the benefit to elevate people's performance has not diminished. That is, it's a competitive advantage. People's companies, while technology and AI and all that, it's super beneficial. It's making people more efficient. I will go to my last day saying the people in a company are the greatest assets. And the more we can invest in having our people be able to think, being able to lead, and being able to make decisions from places of authentic inquiry, not just being reactive with their decision making, the better off we are. So I only see the need is going to get higher.
Yeah. And what about AI? I mean, I've heard of people using AI for like a coach or a therapist.
It has its place. It really does. It has its place. Look, I use AI and I think it's great. I use it sometimes as a thought partner when I'm coming up with ideas early in the morning when I'm like just thinking of ideas that I want to do with my business. So I think it's great. I think people should use it where appropriate. And we all know when we're using it in a way that's not going to ultimately serve us.
Yeah.
Like we
Right.
know that. Okay. So it has its place.
Absolutely. And I agree too. I mean, I've tried using it for like when I'm, stumped on things and, you talk to it and ask it to talk back or give you answers. And it is great. It does have its place.
Mhm.
I totally agree. Yet it's not human. It's still not
No,
human. It doesn't have that, while it's spitting back to you something that people fed it, it's like it's repository of information and it's
yes,
insightful. It
yes,
still can't relate like a
right,
person does.
right, right.
It's not human. So,
Yeah, so it's not human, and it has its place.
it does, exactly. Well, Gabrielle, thank you for this beautiful conversation and for reminding us that transformation doesn't come from adding something new, it comes from rediscovering what's already there. For listeners, if today's episode sparks something in you, make sure to reach out to Gabrielle. And Gabrielle, how can they reach you?
Best ways to reach me are through LinkedIn. You can connect with me, and you can go to, it's Gabrielle Vasquez Baumeyer. I'm the only one on there. Easy to find me. And my website, baumeyercoaching.com. You can book a call with me anytime. I am here to serve, and I like to have conversations, so I'd love to talk with you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you again. And for our listeners, be sure to follow and subscribe to Industry Ignited wherever you listen. And until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry.